Hi there, this is Ron Davis from Distinctions for Life, where I help people get what they really want in life with small changes that make a big difference. And you are at our first ever live stream. And not only is it the first ever live stream of DFL Office Hours, but it is also kind of the first one I've ever done. It's not really true because I did do a live stream of our goal setting workshop on the 1st. And that's weird. Mute. There we go. I want to be able to see myself. So I'm figuring all of this out. Okay, this is an experiment, which is an interesting distinction all by itself, in the sense that I was actually in a mastermind group yesterday, and we were talking about the fear of doing things and the coronavirus and everybody being stuck in their houses. And I said, well, this is a great opportunity to do live streams because people are sitting around looking for something to do. And everybody's now getting used to doing things online. And as part of that, I was like, okay, look, I am just going to do it. I'm not going to talk about doing it. I'm not going to plan on doing it. I am just going to decide to do it. And so I immediately said, I am going to do a live stream tomorrow. And anybody in this mastermind group can come and be on that live stream. So I am actually part of 2 different mastermind groups. I am part of one here in Abilene, Texas, that is the Profoundery Mastermind Group, and it's started by my friend Topher, who hopefully will be joining us soon so we can talk about mastermind groups. And I am also part of the Catalyst Mastermind Group, which is founded and started by Jason Van Orden. That's the group I was talking to yesterday, and that group is completely virtual. So they are all over the world already, even before all this, and we meet on Zoom, which, Zoom. In that meeting last week or a couple of weeks ago, I was like, Zoom a public company because they probably be a good stock to buy right now. Not that any stocks are particularly good to buy right now, but theirs would definitely be one of them because there are so many people who have never done this kind of thing before, but now are completely used to doing this virtual stuff. Hey, Rebecca, it's interesting to me because with all the self-quarantine stuff going on, this is my life normally. I actually work from home. I'm in this mastermind group with people from all over the world. There's a guy from London there, Canada, the US. We're all in this group together. And we use Zoom to have that group meeting. And so all that's normal to me. It's a little, but I know that there are lots of people who probably had never even heard of Zoom before last week. So it's interesting to see them coming in. And since everybody's at home and they're looking for stuff to do, they see, now I've never done this before, so I get distracted when people chat, but that's okay. Feel free to chat. This is actually one of the things I'm just gonna ramble because, hey, why not? I'm rambling. That's the thing. If you have questions, I'll answer questions. Anyway, I don't even know where I was. See, this is the key to preparation. Nope, that's not it. That's what I wanted. All right, so I put the old logo up there. And I don't know where I was going with all of this. So let's talk about masterminds a little bit. So I'm in this, so I'm in a mastermind that's from all over the world and we meet virtually. And the power of masterminds is that that community of people who are doing business, are into business, they understand your ideas in a way. And then having them look at the things that you're doing often helps you. Like for me, some of the biggest breakthroughs I've had, and I had a couple of them last week, were things that if somebody else had been thinking or saying the things that I was thinking and saying, I would have immediately had an answer to them because it's just so painfully obvious that I was making the wrong choices, but I didn't hear it until I voiced it to my group in the mastermind. And they were like, Ron, that's not where you should be spending your time. You should be spending your time doing X, not Y. And then, matter of fact, I'll just tell that story. So I was in a group this was the Catalyst group. It was 2 Wednesdays ago, and I was in a mastermind group. And then this mastermind group, I was in the hot seat. And one of the things I was talking to them about was I was thinking about starting a podcast for Distinctions for Life. I had been doing the YouTube channel, still doing the YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, there's undoubtedly a button right below you, and you should subscribe to it. And I put out a video every week, which is some kind of distinction, some little thing that will help you in your journey as a human being and as an entrepreneur. And I was thinking, I'm going to put out a podcast. And I was going to put out a podcast. There's all kinds of reasons to put out a podcast, including that, you can build an audience doing that. But one of the big advantages, especially when you're small, is that you can invite people to be on your podcast, people who are further along than you are in building an audience. And that big advantage is something that I wanted that I didn't have, because I kept worrying about, whether or not. I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted with the software. I need to focus on you guys and not the software. Even if you're small and if you have a podcast, you can invite people to be on that who may be big. And you may think like, oh, no, they'll never come on your podcast. But you'd be amazed how many people will come on your podcast, even when you're small, because they too are looking to network and to be part of something else. And so I was thinking, I'm going to create an interview podcast for Distinctions for Life. But I'm also like, okay, that's another thing I have to do. I just got my content syndication strategy going, and that takes a while now, although I'm getting the system down so I can also actually pass that off to somebody. One of the things I did to make Distinctions for Life work was I passed off the editing of my videos to someone else. I did it for, I don't know, probably the first 10 or so till I kind of got the pieces all right. I got the process done. And then I was able to hand that off to an editor who could pick up what I had built and work on it. And then he could handle that. And that took, I think pretty much when you're editing video, it's about 4 times as long as the finished video that it's going to take you at least to edit something. And that's after you've kind of got it worked out. When you're still working on it, the first time, it takes a little bit more time and effort to do it. But so anyway, I was able to pass that off, which gave me a huge chunk of time. And originally I used that to get ahead on episodes because, creating a Distinctions for Life episode probably takes me 2 hours to write one, maybe, depending on where I'm at to do it. And then, so I write it. Surprisingly, recording it is pretty quick now. It normally takes me, for my episodes are like 5 to 7 minutes long in general, and it takes me about 15 minutes to record an episode. But that's because once it's written, I'm using a teleprompter, which is right over there. And I am not using it right now because I'm not using the same camera. And that using a teleprompter means really I'm reading it. And, it's just my screw ups from reading that hurt the process and make it slow down. So I can do that in about 15 minutes, and then I'm done with an episode, right? So that's like 2 hours to do it. I don't have another 2 hours of editing to do. So that freed up some time to spend on that. So then I'm starting to look like, well, what should I be doing next? And that's when I go to my mastermind group when I'm in a hot seat. And I'm like, I'm going to do a podcast because I got this idea. I'm going to do a podcast. I have guests on it, and then I'll get the guest audience. It'll all be awesome, and I'll build this huge audience, blah, blah, blah. Well, they're like, is that really how you should be spending your time? Why don't you go get on other people's podcasts? And I'm like, why would other people have me on their podcast? And you know what? If you were my protege, Ron, and you said, why would people not have me on your podcast? My first question would be, what makes you think that? See, that is a limiting belief that we have and that I see in other people, that they think, well, we all think we're not good enough, right? We all have imposter syndrome. We're all worried that we're not worthy to be on someone else's podcast. And if we were to pitch them that they would say no. But you can start thinking about it. You can start seeing how you could be of value, right? You can't just call, someone who has a podcast and say, hey, I want to be on your podcast because I'm really cool and your podcast is cool and you should have me on because stuff, and I really, really need it. And like, if I was on your podcast, I might get more people to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and that would be really great. And so, like, that is the wrong attitude, and it may be even why we have the belief that nobody would want us to be on there, because what's happening there is you are telling the other person what you need from being on their podcast, as opposed to the opposite of that, which is what you should be doing, which is what value can you provide to their audience. That is always, whenever you are pitching to somebody else, whenever you're pitching to someone else, you need to be talking in terms of them, not in terms of you. Thanks, David. I will totally turn that off for you so that you are not distracted, because I am saying very important stuff. David, I think, actually was one of the first ones to say, Ron, like that was another mastermind meeting. They were on there. Matter of fact, David, if you want to get on here, text me and I'll text you a link and you can be one of my guests, because Topher's running a little late. Has that day job thing, you know how that works. So this idea that if you have a community, that when you even articulate things that are going on in your business, they hear them in a way that you don't hear them. Here's a go off a little aside here about articulating things that you don't hear yourself. When I had my software company, when we were doing a video game company, I ran across this article, and then I told it to all my people, and we all ended up doing this. Because when you're a programmer, you often run into programming problems, right? And it'll be amazing that you will have this big problem and you're like, I cannot figure it out. I've been banging my head against this thing for like 2 days. I am going to go down the hall and talk to my boss or talk to my fellow programmer, and then they will, they can give me the solution, right? And you walk down the hall and you start explaining the problem, because you can't just say, hey, I have a problem. You have to say, like, oh, I did this and I did this other thing and I'm trying to do this and blah, blah, blah. And you start explaining the problem. And while you're explaining the problem, you figure out the solution, right? It's that talking to it. And some programmers discovered this. I don't know if it was one particular one or not. And what he did was he bought a rubber ducky, and he put it on his desk. And then when he ran into a problem like that, he would talk to the duck. So he would explain the problem to the duck. And often that would give him the solution, because as he's talking about it, it's coming out, he's hearing it, and he's doing all the things you do without the actual feedback from the other person. And so we actually, at Reactuate Games, had we went out on the internet and found pictures of rubber ducks, and you'd be amazed at all the weird kind of rubber ducks you can find. And one of them was, I remember Spock was one of them, and some of the others. Let me quickly send David a link, because David Cranfill of Small Business Outfitters is in the chat. He's one of my members of my mastermind group, and I don't know what just happened. Okay, where is my messages? David. I'm not sharing that screen. No, not sharing a screen. Today, quit. Boy, this is boring. This is like super duper boring. And I've also lost my window. Where is StreamYard? One thing I am going to mention to you guys is that I am using a product called, ooh, I could do that. That's an interesting, I was going to do that last week. A product called StreamYard, which is a web-based live streaming software. And one of the advantages that it has is that it's all running on their server. So that means if I have a guest like Topher or David, either one of which should just be able to click that link and be brought to StreamYard, and then they'll be added. I don't know, haven't ever tried this before. So we're going to try this out. But if I wanted to do a live stream where I had somebody else on the stream, normally what happens is that you have you're running all of this on your own computer. So in order for someone else to be on the show, they have to come into your computer from the internet via something like Zoom or Skype or whatever. Then they get mixed together by whatever your software is, and then you stream that out to your server, right? Well, the problem is that every time when they're coming in and you're going out, that's 2 streams of video data that are happening. And then if you're, well, like most people, monitoring what's going on, like I have YouTube up over here, and that is another stream of data that's coming in, and it's using up all of your bandwidth. All right, so now we have Topher and David here. So I'm gonna add Topher to the stream. Hey, Topher.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. This is wild, man. Like, I had never even heard of this stuff 2 days ago.
Right.
StreamYard, and it is like kind of awesome. I was gonna hide. Now I explain the dynamics of streams. I was like, I probably shouldn't have that second one open, but I'm going to anyway.
So I'm curious. I remember I sent you a link in our private group. Is that where you saw StreamYard, or were you already planning on using this before that?
No, actually, I don't remember that stream in the private group because I don't remember that link. I actually was watching YouTube last night, and I was watching this lawyer. He's a Canadian lawyer who was interviewing somebody else, and it had StreamYard up in the corner, powered by like what you guys are seeing, which is what you get with the free account. He had that up, and I'm like, what is that? You know, and I'm like Googling it, and then I went and watched some videos on how it works, and I'm like, that's what I need.
Yeah.
Because I also don't have wired internet in my office. So that means that if I wanted to have you on here, I'd have to, this will all be over Wi-Fi.
Right.
And, I wasn't really sure how well that could handle it. You know, it's interesting. We think Wi-Fi, we think our internet connection is the bottleneck, but our Wi-Fi is faster than our internet connections in general.
Generally, yeah.
Yeah. So Topher, tell everybody who you are if they don't know.
Yeah, awesome. So my name is Topher Fangio. I am the owner of Profoundry LLC, which is a small little company here in Abilene, Texas, that provides funnel services and design. And I used to do development. I'm trying to move a little bit away from that. But about a year ago, a little over a year ago, I guess, I started a local mastermind here in town, and we get together every 2 weeks, basically, and we help each other with our businesses. And it's evolved a lot over the last couple of years, or I guess the last year, specifically the last couple months. We've really taken some strides to move forward and progress and make it a really engaging experience. So that's been really exciting, getting to have Ron there. So Ron is in the mastermind with me. I'm also one of Ron's proteges for Distinctions for Life. So he's my mentor and guide, and has been helping me a lot in all of the things that I'm doing. I have a lot of things as an entrepreneur. I try so many different things. It's kind of crazy. And so he helps bring me back and helps me focus on the things that really actually matter and move the needle. But he was instrumental in helping me get my new website, Social Marketplace Secrets, live and get that launched. I'm doing some more stuff to that. Hopefully, it's trying to get it done this weekend, but I'll get it done maybe this weekend. And yeah, it's just amazing. So it's a little bit about me. Any specific questions you want me to answer, Ron?
Well, so you started the mastermind, and so what would, actually, let's just kind of skip over what a mastermind is. We'll come back to that because I think that's important for people who haven't been, we probably should explain that. Like, if we think about the fact that we have viewers, they may or may not know what a mastermind actually is. Maybe we should explain that. Do you want to do it, or do you want me to?
Sure, yeah. So the basic principle behind a mastermind, and I mean, maybe you can fill in some of the details on the history of masterminds. I think you know a little bit more about that. For me, I was sitting at one of the conferences that I go to, is Funnel Hacking Live. So I'm actually I own Profoundry, but I also work full time for a company called ClickFunnels. I think you can see it on my shirt here, and we provide funnel software for entrepreneurs to help them sell all of their stuff online. And at our yearly event where we bring speakers up, one of the speakers was Dean Graziosi, and he was talking about how powerful masterminds are for helping you essentially take whatever you're thinking about and get a few more people thinking about the same thing. And when you have a few people actually brainstorming and thinking about the same thing, you get this higher mind, is what they call it. And that's what the mastermind is really about, is getting multiple people to work together towards solving a problem and being able to say, okay, well, I have experience in this area, and so that's going to help me look at it from this perspective, and then somebody else is going to look at it from a different perspective. And so you get all of these different ideas kind of culminating in what is essentially going to be the best version of whatever you're thinking about, the best solution. And it's also, so it's part about that that higher level mind, but it's also a place for commitment and ongoing accountability and things like that to help you push yourself forward and to come back together. You know, we do it every 2 weeks. Some of them do it every week. Some of them do it every month or something like that. But you set out goals, and every single time that you come together, you talk about the things that you did well since the last meeting. It's called our wins. We spend about 15 minutes doing those, and it's really just a time to encourage each other. What's that, Ron?
On a good day.
On a good day, yeah.
Yeah, we do have a tendency to go a little log on the wins and the goals and the everything else. So
yeah, I think we're in a unique mastermind because we were all kind of friends before we started it, and so we do like to hang out and talk and just sit around and things like that. But ideally, so you spend 15 minutes going over your wins. So that gives each member about 2 to 3 minutes to just talk about bullet points, like here's what I did this past week or 2 weeks or whatever. And things that were really exciting or made progress, helped you get your business going, things like that. And so there's this encouragement and I guess accountability aspect to it as well. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So you do that at the beginning where you share your wins, and then you have some middle place, which is often a hot seat. We'll talk about hot seats in just a second. And then at the end, we say our goals, what we're going to do for the next week. That's sort of the basic structure of a mastermind group as I understand them. You mentioned I might know the history. So the term was coined by Napoleon Hill. I actually thought it was coined in Think and Grow Rich, which is the book that Napoleon Hill is most famously known for. But anyway, but it was actually another one of his. But one of the things about Napoleon Hill was he was hired by Henry Ford, to study what we now call like personal development, to go out and figure out why some people were successful and some people weren't. And the examples that because Henry Ford hired him, the examples he got were like these bastions of business, Henry Ford, the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, all these people whose names are just household names now. And one of the things he found was that they got together and talked about their business with each other, right? And bringing that together and created a mastermind, which is where the term came from. And so that's like the origin of it. And I think over the years, it's gotten a little more formalized and what have you. But the core of it is that you meet, you talk about your wins, you talk about your goals. And then in the middle, and it kind of varies. Like I know ours has evolved. I know the other one that I'm in on Wednesdays has 2 different centerpieces. So one type of centerpiece that people often have is some form of education. In the one I'm on Wednesdays, that's every other week. The guy who runs it does a teaching kind of thing for the middle. And I know in our Profoundry mastermind, every other time we have a teaching. Like we're supposed to meet tonight. And I think I'm the one who's going to be doing the teaching tonight. But we have teaching, and then the other one, we have what we call a hot seat, right? And the hot seat is where one member of the group gets to talk about whatever they want help on in their business. And you kind of need that to be focused. That's actually one of the things we've learned. We've learned a number of things. Topher, what do you say? What some of the things we've learned along the way?
Yeah. So the first thing is I came back from my conference and I said, I'm going to start a mastermind. And so I got a bunch of people together and we sat down and I took them through this presentation on an idea that I had learned called hook, story, and offer, and how to use it to actually grab people's attention and bring them through and get them to do some desired action, right? And so we did this whole thing, and it was great, and it went pretty well, and we got done. And I think it was you, Ron, came up and said that was really cool, but that wasn't a mastermind. So I, first thing right out of the gate, I learned what the typical format of a mastermind is and how it differs from just kind of getting together, right? So there is that specific format that you want to follow. And I think the hot seat is a really valuable piece, but we did absolutely learn that there's a lot of value in having some presentation as well as the hot seat, so that you can help everybody kind of grow and learn together and talk about things that really are kind of basic and foundational to your business, that everybody, I guess, needs to know. So it's been really great. I think we're all kind of at the same stage in our business, and that's been really helpful because we all kind of got to start up together and grow together and get to this point where, we're looking at the same types of problems that we're trying to solve.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can have these discussions and have these presentations that actually show us, all together what we need to be focused on. And that's really fantastic. I would say we've learned a lot about time. I wouldn't say that we're good at time, but it's really important. I think we started out and tried to do it for an hour and found out that for us, that just simply was not enough time. Because you do 15 minutes for wins, which generally turns into 20 or 25. Then you're supposed to have 45 minutes for the middle part. And that, I'd say we actually kind of fit around that, maybe an hour sometimes, but we usually try and wrap it up around 20 minutes or 45 minutes. And then you're supposed to have 15 minutes at the end to set goals for the next meeting. And I feel like that's probably where we decline, because we wind up talking about things that we want to talk about, and eventually maybe we close up the meeting and then we still hang out for another 20 or 30 minutes or so. So we kind of found that an hour and a half is really a good length of time for our group to be able to do this. And I think we also learned that size is really important. So we have about 5 or 6 people that show up pretty regularly. So there's probably 8 people in the mastermind, but not everybody gets to come every time. And we encourage attendance for every single time, but life happens. You've got kids, you've got business responsibilities, things like that. So trying to set a group of about 10 people and having 6 or 7 of them come regularly is a really good number for an in-person event. Once you get above that, I think it's really hard to stay in that time cap, because you give everybody 3 minutes, and that's at least 20 for their wins or their goals or whatever. So I think for us 5 or 6 people seems to be a really good number for a mastermind.
Yeah. And I thought we do have another person waiting in the wings who's in our group. So I'm going to add David here to ours.
Wow.
Well, it handles 3. Getting to do it that way. Is that so? There. Anyway, this thing is.
Had to unmute myself. Didn't want to come on.
Yeah, you had muted yourself. Your audio is pretty low too. I don't know if that's what it sounds like to me.
Here, hang on.
Whatever you're putting on, that's the microphone it's using.
Yeah.
So we just heard you picking that up.
Let's see here.
Okay, you sound much better now. Much better.
Yeah. Okay. Is that better?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
David, you've been in our group. What would you say that we have learned as we have grown as a group?
One of the biggest benefits to me from being on the mastermind and doing that is just the accountability of it. I think when you're an entrepreneur and you're solo doing your own thing, then the temptation is to put things off. That in prioritizing things, I think that's one of the difficult things about being an entrepreneur is being able to have focus and knowing when you need to prioritize certain things. And when you're meeting with people, it's almost like having a boss without having a boss. So that's probably one of the biggest benefits I've gained out of it is it just brings me back into focus when there's things that I know the overwhelming execution of the daily work that I have to get done versus the strategic moving the business forward. That's what the mastermind brings me back into centering on and knowing that, okay, I've neglected the strategy aspect of my business. And here's a bunch of people that are they're not going to grill me or, toast me or anything, but they're going to at least ask me, well, how did your goals go from 2 weeks ago? In 2 weeks, you would think, I can get those things done. And then sometimes the day of the mastermind, 30 minutes as you're driving toward it, you're like, oh, wait a second. They're going to ask me about this goal that I haven't even thought of for 2 weeks. So that's been a lot of the benefit is it gets you in focus more.
Yeah, I think we've all had that experience where it's the day of the thing and we're like, what were my goals last time? But then you get them done, which is kind of the amazing thing, that any problem fills up the amount of time you give it. And so if we give them 2 weeks, then that's it. I know that this is not an uncommon problem for masterminds to have discussions go too long or whatever, because in my other one, they actually had to make the rule that you had to post your goals ahead of time. No, your wins ahead of time, and your goals you had to have written out already too. And I know that we've started trying to do some of that, right? That we have, everybody should know their wins before they get there. So the very least they can read them quickly, as opposed to having to come up with them on the fly as well.
Right. Yeah, that definitely makes a big difference when we do that and kind of enforce that.
Yeah. So what do you think are some of the weaknesses of a mastermind group? I do have a few questions here.
Weaknesses, yeah.
Focus in the meeting. Sometimes I think because of the personal relationships we have, it's tempting to get off track and be relational in the meeting rather than the business agenda of what we're trying to accomplish in our businesses. So, having been a Toastmaster in Toastmasters in the past, that's where I learned the importance of sticking to agendas and time management, really more so than anything. And so being in different groups, masterminds, even corporate meetings and things like that, where people don't adhere to the set agenda and schedule, either everybody's like, well, can we run another 30 minutes or an hour? and you maybe can or can't. And maybe it was you that didn't get to express what you really wanted to talk about, business wise or whatever. And it's just that balance of personal relationship as you develop that. I think with the in-person mastermind group, I don't know, Ron, if you could speak. I haven't been a part of one that's virtual, so I don't know if you build that personal relationship as deeply so that when you get together, if you haven't seen each other in a couple of weeks, there is that temptation to go, well, how's the kids? How's the dog? How's anybody have a dry cough this week? So that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the question is, how long has our mastermind been going? Do you guys have any idea? Like, when did we start that? Do you remember when you started it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was basically March of 2019.
So we're about a year old. This may even be like an anniversary or something tonight.
Yeah.
So
we should go
one of the things too is do we have that relational stuff because we've been doing it so long? Because I don't know, we don't have that in my online one. Mm-hmm. And I was going to talk about, there's another thing here in Abilene. I know David and I have been part of it, and Topher's part of it. The Monday lunches, which aren't a mastermind, but they're a community for entrepreneurs. So they're sort of community lunches. So they don't have the structure of a mastermind, but they do very much have that, this is what's going on in my business discussion kind of stuff, just without the structure. And then they also have some teaching, right? Because David was one of the teachers last week. On Profit First. So that's another example of another form of community.
Time
and that
management
also ends up being very relational.
Yeah, that time management was an issue.
Not meeting management, right? Anyway.
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't want to go into that. It was really bugging me, and I don't know why. In that particular instance, it was just bugging the crap out of me that things were wandering around. So anyway, but okay. And I know here's a question, and I think Topher may be a good person to answer this one.
Okay.
What is the difference between having a mastermind group, whether that is live or virtual, like Zoom virtual, and a Facebook group? Because I know you're a part of a number of entrepreneurial Facebook groups, and actually I think David is too.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of any entrepreneurial Facebook groups other than the ones that go with my masterminds that I am part of. So what is the difference, pros and cons of those groups versus a mastermind?
Yeah, so from the Facebook, we have a lot of Facebook groups, and I think those are really good about the community. There's a lot of people that help build each other up. They try and answer questions for people, especially if it's a specific niche for that group, right? So I'm a part of one that's for sales and copywriting, and a lot of people just hop in there and say, hey, I'm working on this email, or I'm working on this video sales letter or whatever. Can you guys give me some feedback on it? And that's incredibly helpful. I think that happens in masterminds too, but on a group setting like that, you've got so many more people that can really provide a lot of value there. And it's all asynchronous, right? So if I'm up at 2 in the morning or something, I can hop on there and type something up and post it, and then by 8 a.m. or something when I wake up, then hopefully I'll have a couple of responses. Whereas you definitely don't get that in a mastermind setting. You got to wait, and so you have to write things down and say, okay, well, I want to talk about this. And if you're not in the hot seat, it may be a while. I mean, maybe 2 months even before you get the opportunity to bring that up and really get a question about that answered. So the Facebook groups are really good for that because you can get more immediate feedback. The other thing that I've noticed is a lot of the Facebook groups that I've joined, there are there's the person who created the group, and then there are moderators or staff members, I guess, that will actually hop in there and answer your questions for you. So a couple of the ones that I've been on, the owners of the group who really know their craft really well will hop in there and just start answering your questions. And that is incredibly valuable too, because, when you're part of a mastermind, you expect that there are a few leaders in there, but it's rare to have like somebody who's been doing their craft for 30 years or something, that's actually running the mastermind and in there with you and talking to you and helping you work through things. So I have found a lot of value in those. I think there's also some opportunities there. You have some opportunities to connect. In our mastermind, it's pretty small, and I imagine most masterminds there's a limit to the size, and you can make those connections with people and potentially even have business opportunities come from that. But I think that's just way more expanded when you're in a Facebook group, because there's so many more people that you can talk to and pull from and that are all interacting together. Some of the groups that I'm part of have 20 or 30 or 50 or 200,000 people in them, right? So it's just expanding your horizons in a way that you can't do in a smaller setting.
And David, you've been in some groups. What would you say?
For me, the groups that I'm in, I think it's the information age that we live in. I know I could go out and search and Google answers if I want to, but being in these Facebook groups, and they pop up in your feed, and you see someone struggling with an issue or just resources. One of the biggest things I've gleaned, and that's what just gleaming things out of these Facebook groups, is like files. People will load content and files and things that you can use in your business in some of the groups I'm in, and that gleaming, rather than me doing the research and the legwork, even though I have this infinite library that is the internet to look up things, that's what it's a condensing and funneling down into, because of the niche of the groups that I'm in. The information that I can glean from it is almost fed to me, stuff I didn't know that I needed to be researching and knowing about because I'm hearing other people's issues or problems come up. So that's the benefit of those groups. That I personally don't ever connect to anybody in those groups. So there is no personal relationship, and that's my relationship with social media is I'm very private. I don't want to put myself out there with strangers. So I'm not going to engage with a bunch of strangers in those groups. I'm the lurker in the background, just gleaming what I can from it. So that's the downside, I think, is I question sometimes if that's really the best strategy to take to those groups, because I don't connect or network. I did have one interesting event happen where someone reached out from one of the groups and wanted to connect to me because they knew I was in a specific industry doing specific type of work, and they are at the other end of the country in California, and they wanted to connect to someone and just see. They were getting into the industry and wanted to pick someone's brain about the industry. So we got on the phone and ended up having a good long hour conversation, and it was a good connection. Ended up friending each other on Facebook and kind of going from there. So, I'm toe dipping into the more personal side of the Facebook groups and things like that, but still very cautious. And just the real value for me personally is just gleaming the massive information for the practice that I'm trying to build from other people's problems and content that they readily share. It accelerates what I'm trying to do in my business, being in those groups.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because I said Facebook groups because Facebook groups have replaced forums. It used to be back in the day, there were forums. If you were into something, you would go find a website that had a forum about that thing. And, essentially that's what Reddit is now. It's like the world's largest forum. And I think there's probably, I don't know, I spent a little time on Reddit recently, and I'm still kind of up there. That
Traumatized a little.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things. It's like, yeah, if you're careful. Okay, if it's careful, it's like a big, giant building, and you just got to be careful which rooms you wander into.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, but it used to be that you had forums, and it was the same kind of thing. And I know that thinking about photography, when I was doing photography, I started all of that on a particular forum website. And, that was one of those things where you do start to form relationships with people if you're interacting a lot on the group. And then how deep those relationships end up going is, it's how much you connect in different directions. I actually found that in that the people I knew and made relationships with were when you took it offline. Mm-hmm. When I went to photography workshops that they had put on, or I had a photography studio in Houston, and one of the guys the guy who founded it contacted me through that forum. He's like, "Hey, you're in Houston and you seem not to be a crazy person, and you want to have lunch?" Yeah, you want to have lunch and talk about maybe opening a studio together. And we did. We ended up doing that with another guy from that same forum as well. So it works out, and you can do that, and you can make those relationships. But they aren't the point of a mastermind, right? Mm-hmm. Networking is not the point of a mastermind. Right. Actually, that brings up another interesting point that David's an expert on. So how is a mastermind different from a networking group? Because I know you've been part of BNI, and that's the point of BNI, right?
Well, that's my frame of references on both of those type of groups is with like BNI, that's specifically referral marketing, is that there's a set agenda. You go in there and it's the idea of just passing referrals to one another, and you educate each other through that group meeting on what kind of referrals, what's ideal customers, even specific asks for the week. So if I'm a plumber and I just want to repair toilets this week, then if you hear of somebody that can't flush their John, then that's an ideal referral for me. And that's a networking group. Versus a mastermind group, to me, the agenda is more on business development and not necessarily growth, although that's a fundamental piece to having a sustainable business is sales and cash flow that comes in. So everyone, growth and sales is always obviously a big topic in most of the masterminds that I hear of. But there is the other aspects of the business that people struggle with. And I think that that's it. Even if you are an entrepreneur of a $10 million company, there's situations where you're isolated. You're on an island and by yourself. And, because people can't relate to everything that you have to be accountable for and the ship that you're steering. And so in that way, you have to have insulation around the people that you work with on a daily basis, and that isolates you and leaves you alone. And that's where a mastermind comes in, is it gives you the opportunity to be more transparent and vulnerable with people that aren't going to criticize how many coffee breaks you have or smoke breaks you have or whatever, as you would with your peers, versus them being able to give you objective advice on what you're dealing with. So that's the benefit of a mastermind group to me, is you're not alone in the struggles that you're having with your business, and the referral networking type of groups. Those they're much more of a rifle target with just the growing your business and sales type of thing. So that's my understanding of the difference in the two.
Okay, that's good. Well, this is the first time I've ever done this, and we're coming up on 45 minutes. I'm glad you guys came and were on the show, because I don't know what I would have done if nothing in it. For 45 minutes, I probably could have done it, because I can talk, except that I'm starting to cough, and that's yay. You start wondering, am I really, am I just putting this in my head? I've been coughing for 2 weeks because it's pollen season, but now, you've got to have Corona if you're coughing. All right. So before we wrap up, there are two things. One is I want to give you guys an opportunity to give a call to action to the people who happen to be watching or will watch this in the future in the recording. I know both of you guys, I work with both of you guys, and calls to action are something I'm constantly talking about. And it's a struggle for all of us, right? To where do you want to send people? So that they can get more information about you. And then the other thing I wanted to do, and you can feel free to leave after the call to action if you want, is tell me how the streaming software was on your end. So Topher, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So right now, I'm in the middle of so many different things. I think the best way to actually connect with me and see what I'm doing and see how I can serve you is to just find me on Facebook. My name is here. That's my name on Facebook. So just search for Topher Fangio and you'll see me. I've got this little kind of avatar. I don't know if I can show that right now, but it's me wearing a hat, and you can kind of tell that it's me. And I would love to connect with you and just see how I can help you. And specifically, if you're in the Abilene or Big Country area, I love to get together in person and talk about your business, see what you're doing, what you're working on, and just connect. I love to connect with people. If you just want to go see something that I offer, I recently launched a course called Social Marketplace Secrets that allows you to, that teaches you how to sell your items on places like Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, Poshmark, things like that. And I will be increasing the price very soon here. So right now it's just $7 to get access to the entire course, which is an incredible deal, I think. It's about an hour's worth of content. You can get through it really quickly and jump straight in there. You can go to sm-secrets.com to check that out, learn more, and hopefully purchase and become a member. And I would love to be able to help you in that regard. And the reason that I started this is because a lot of the information that's in there can be applied to any type of sales and marketing. So it's kind of my intro to say, hey, learn how to sell things locally with real people, figure that out. And then once you have that, right, you can take this and go as far as you want with it. Thank you. And Ron, thank you so much for having me. I think this software, just to kind of give you my thoughts on that, seems really great. I love the ability to have people side by side. I love how you have control of putting people's names in there and doing all sorts of crazy and amazing things. I'm definitely going to be giving this a try. I learned about this yesterday from a Facebook group, actually. Somebody else was saying, hey, I saw somebody doing a live stream. How do I accomplish that? And they mentioned StreamYard. And so I started looking at it. probably about 2 a.m. last night after the tornado came through.
Yeah, the tornadoes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
You know what I
So,
discovered
yeah.
last night? That Alexa dongs at you with notifications for severe weather.
That's kind of cool.
So like at 2 o'clock in the morning,
mine wasn't loud enough.
1:30 in the morning last night, it goes dong in my bedroom, and is like, I'm like, what is that? Well, what is it? And then you wake up, and last night you could hear the sirens. I don't remember ever hearing the sirens before.
I don't think that was the siren. I think that was the tornado. Because
Really?
I stepped outside and I heard it, and my wife said, "Is that the siren?" And from what I recall, they took out all the sirens recently, or maybe like a year ago. And it was, if you remember the sirens, it's kind of got this long like build up, and then it kind of goes back down, and it builds up and goes back down. And that was not doing that. That was a constant, just consistent noise. Maybe I'm wrong, but I assumed it was the actual tornado that we were hearing, because it went within about 10 miles of us, I think.
Yeah, it was close. I went outside and videotaped the constant lightning. There was just like constant lightning in that.
Yeah.
And so it's on my Instagram, maybe my Facebook, definitely my TikTok. And yeah, because that's what Ron had to do at 1:30 in the morning, was he had to TikTok tornado sirens and constant lightning. So anyway, David, what's up? Tell us what you think and who you are. Where you want people to go.
Software is good. I'm a profit mechanic, so specifically help small businesses and entrepreneurs with the financial piece of their business. If they can't afford a full-blown CFO or a strategist like that, a little bit different than even what the accountant would do for you or anything, because it's just an overarching view of the business financial stability from you personally and what you need from it, all the way to making it's sustainable beyond just cash flow and getting more sales. It's the profitability that's going to sustain you. So re-engineering business around profitability. Most people don't do that because they're given the formula of sales minus expenses, and then what's left over is what you make. What I try to coach people on is the profit first concept, where you make that primacy be your profit. And so you take your sales and then you take away your profit, and then you figure out how to run your business on what's left. I think the call to action today is just, there's a lot of panic and fear surrounding our current circumstance in the country and the world. And, there's an economic recession. I've seen people calling for depression coming. So there's a lot of fear around for small business owners, I'm sure. And it shouldn't be that way, even in a time of recession. If we're truly headed into even a depression, the call of action for you is to really get down to the fundamentals of what you do best in your business, focus on the right clients. There's going to be more clients available because of other businesses panicking and cutting labor force or something. There's certain clients that won't be served by those companies anymore, and it gives you an opportunity to pick up those customers. So it's not a time necessarily to be driven by the current and the flow of fear that's happening around here, but to really get a handle on what you do well and focus on how to weather the storm and even prosper in this time. And so focusing on your profitability and what's going to drive that in this season is what I help folks with. And the best way probably to connect with me is also through Facebook. You can look up David Cranfill or Small Business Outfitters. And it's Cranfill is my last name. So that's the only thing I would say is I can't go back in and edit my title now. So to put my name in there, I kept trying to do that and couldn't figure that out. But
me too.
But once it's locked in, it's locked in. So a little more forethought there, I guess. But other than that, that's even just emailing me at smbizOutfitters@gmail.com is a good way to connect with me too. So
okay. All right. You can drop that stuff in the chat. I dropped social marketplace secrets in the chat. I don't know what happens to that. That chat is on YouTube, so use it with caution. I don't know what happens to the chat after this is on, but I am going to leave this one up. I took the goal setting one down after we did it. It was live and it was gone. But I'm going to leave this one up. When I first started Distinctions for Life and was first planning it out a year ago, I had a plan to do a live stream every Wednesday called Office Hours. And I never did it because you don't want to have a live stream, nobody show up. So I never did it. But I was like, I think that's one of the things with everybody cocooning is that people are going to watch a lot more live. You know, they're looking for live human beings to be around them. And this is at least a substitute for that. But thank you again, guys, for being on there. And thank you for everyone who stuck around and watched. It was good to have people actually paying attention to us. And I will see you guys tonight, either really or virtually. I don't know.
Probably virtually.
Virtually.
Yeah,
okay.
I'll send out a message.
All right. So virtually tonight and for our mastermind, we will talk about messaging, right? Message?
Yes, indeed.
Attention, something like that. And if you guys want to know something about attention, the people who are watching this, you can look at you can subscribe to the channel, needless to say. And there's an episode, there's the money flow framework. And the first step in that is attention, which is the same stuff I'm probably going to be talking about tonight because we're talking about messaging and that's part of it. But again, thank you for being here and I will do this again sometime.
Thanks so much for having us, Ron.
Thanks, Ron.